Hey guys, Marshall Sutcliffe here at the floor at Grand Prix Vancouver. I'm with KYT. Car Young Tom, welcome to the feature match area here at KYT. KYT, affectionately known as Captain Canada to his friends, manadeprived.com, and you're playing Mono Black. I wanted to take a quick look at your Mono Black deck, and then I want to chat with you about Mono Black in general. So I'm going to take a look at the deck real quick here first. So let's start here on the one drops. You've got the 4 Thoughtseize. Now your Mono Black deck is a pretty standard build, right, KYT?
Right. It's Owen's been dominating with the Mono Black list, winning multiple tournaments with it, and so I just basically took his list and took his recommendation of just tweaking the sideboard a bit.
Okay.
And that's basically the deck that I'm piloting.
All right, so you've got 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Pack Rat. That seems to be, people call it a free win. I don't know if free is the right word, but you can pick up some victories pretty easily with that. Right.
It's one of the best starts in the game, but against some of the more aggressive matchups, I think people who aren't used to, who have just picked up the deck and they play an aggressive deck, they might feel that they can out-pack rack them and they end up being wrong and losing.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It's not as straightforward as people think it is.
Okay, so that's good to know. And then I see that you've got 4 Devour Flesh along with 4 Hero's Downfall in the main deck. That makes up the majority of your creature and sometimes planeswalker removal package. Pretty effective? Right.
Like some people even go out of their way to call Devour Flesh the best removal spell in the game.
Oh, interesting.
It takes away like a lot of the weird creatures that you might not really see, but that do come up, like Witch Stalker or Blood Baron. There's no other way for us to be able to deal with that. So Devour Flesh is pretty key in those matchups. Okay, and then looking at your other 3 drops, we have a pair of 3s there that act as card advantage engines as well as devotion enablers with Night Veil Spectre and Underworld connections. Yeah.
So how important are those for the deck?
Really important in the matches where you want to hit your devotion counter to be able to Grey Merchant them for a significant amount.
Okay. So like the rest of their life, generally speaking.
Right.
You've also got Desecration Demon as just a massive and relatively cheap threat there, and the package of 4 Grey Merchant of Asphodels that we've seen in these decks. A whole bunch of Swamps.
Yeah.
4 Temple of Deceit, 4 Mutavault. A really clean build here.
Yeah. I think the temples have gone up from, like, at the beginning people were playing 2, I think. Then they adjusted to 3, and I think it's now standard for it to be 4. Some people even go far to play 5, but I've been happy with 4. I've liked the scry effects. I think everyone's learning how good these scry lands are. Yeah, and that has taken a little bit of time to get in, but we've seen that over and over again. A quick look at your sideboard. 3 Duress, you've got 3 Lifebane Zombie, a couple of Erebos, some Dark Betrayals, and then a package of 4 more removal spells with Pharika's Cures and Doomblades. This is a pretty standardized sideboard as well for Mono Black. Right. This is every card, everybody who has seen the list would be expecting these cards out of my sideboard. Okay. People haven't really deviated too much from that. It's just like a number of Erebos or a number of Dark Betrayals, or some people have put Shrivel to fight White Weenie, which can be a tough matchup. So, but outside of that, most people have the same 12 cards at least, I would say. Okay, so what I want to do now is we've taken a look at your deck here, and this is a deck that, like we mentioned before, it's a known quantity, right? I mean, we've seen this deck week in and week out. Like you mentioned, Owen Turnwald has had huge success with the deck, and it's starting to reach boogeyman status, right? Where people are hyper aware of this one deck. Whenever they build a new deck or whenever they bring a deck to a tournament, they're thinking, well, I got to be able to beat Mono Black. You're coming into this tournament, you won a GP trial with this deck already yesterday. I top 8 at PTQ last week. Also.
Okay, so you've had some success with this deck already. When you come into the Grand Prix, the big stage here in Vancouver, how nervous are you that people are going to be gunning for this deck?
Usually in a big tournament like this, where there's a lot of people that just come in with their favorite decks, I'm fine. Usually in GPs, I'm really comfortable with taking any deck, especially in the earlier rounds. And I feel like the top decks, like the most popular decks, are like mono blue, some blue-white variant, and like the matchup is fine there for mono black. Okay. I think where it gets tougher are all those less popular decks. Like the green-white aggro deck is the deck I'm most scared of.
Is that right?
Because it plays all these cards that are they just counter you. Like Lesnia Charm kills your demon. Voice of Resurgence requires 2 cards to get rid of it. and then they play Advent of the Worm, making your like they confuse you because you think you can out-pack rack them, but they can play Advent of the Worm, untap, play in a Johnny, double strike flying, you take 10, and then you realize that even you have a bunch of pack rats, but you lost.
Right.
So people have won even on the draw with green-white against a sea of pack rats.
Wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that for the green-white, and we've seen that deck pop up on some tournament series, so it's sort of a blip on the radar if it's not a big piece of the metagame. Now, what are the cards when you come into the tournament today that you're most scared of, the ones that you just don't want to see from your opponents?
So it is cards like Voice of Resurgence and Sandrid Necromancer. Any card that just makes it tough. Like, I need all the cards that I can, so having me to use 2 cards to get rid of 1 is huge. And like, those 2 cards are very similar, right? Like, they just make a dude if they die. But Voice is also more annoying because you have to cast all your removal spell on your turn in order not to give them a token. So those are the key spells. Other than that, I'm pretty comfortable with the rest of the cards in the format. Okay, now what about I have one more question for you before I'm going to let you go. The mirror. I mean, you feel like you're playing the best deck in the room. Right.
You are not alone in that thinking. You have to be prepared for the mirror. How do you approach it?
I think some people don't sideboard duresses, and I know some prominent players that don't or don't really like it. I've had success with sideboarding, but there's really not much you can do. The matchup is pretty straightforward. It really comes down to, like, stage 1 is like who has pack rat. Usually the other guy has removal because they have so many dark betrayals and stuff. So then it goes to stage 2 where it's the connections war, Erebos, and it's really who lands connections first. And so that's why duress is so good. You just duress, try to get connections away. And I think my edge is I'm undefeated in the mono black mirror because I'm playing against people who probably assume it's the best deck, they pick it up and don't sideboard correctly. But against someone who is well versed with the deck, like Owen, for example, I don't think I'm going to get much edge. It's going to be pretty straightforward how the matchup develops.
All right, that's great stuff. KYT, thanks for your time, buddy. Appreciate it, and we wish you luck on behalf of all Canadians. They're all rooting for you. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe signing off from the floor here at Grand Prix Vancouver.